Amy Carter wiped down the metal counter for the 10th time that morning. The synthetic coffee maker hissed and bubbled behind her, filling Murphy's diner with the smell of artificial beans. Through the large viewing window, she could see the endless black of space dotted with distant stars. Sometimes she forgot they were spinning through the void on a mining station millions of miles from Earth. The diner sat on the main level of Kepler-7, humanity's farthest outpost in the Centauri system. Most days, Amy served coffee and protein bars to tired miners coming off their shifts. Their faces were always dirty, their clothes always smelled like metal dust, and they always complained about the food. But they tipped well enough, and Amy needed every credit she could get. "More coffee over here," called out Pete Walsh from table 3. He worked the deep shafts where the best ore came from. His hands were permanently stained black from the mining equipment. Amy grabbed the pot and walked over to fill his cup. "Thanks, sweetheart," Pete said. "You hear about the new shipment coming in today? Some big corporate types from the inner colonies." Amy nodded but didn't really care. Rich people pass through Kepler-7 all the time, usually to check on their investments or complain about production numbers. They never stayed long, and they never noticed the waitresses. The diner door chimed as 3 more customers walked in. Amy recognized them immediately, station security guards in their dark blue uniforms. They sat at their usual table near the back and ordered the daily special without looking at the menu. Amy had been serving them for 2 years, ever since her father died in the mining accident. Her father. Amy tried not to think about him during work hours, but sometimes the memories crept in anyway. He had been a good man who worked hard to give his family a better life. The accident wasn't his fault. A support beam had failed in Tunnel 7, crushing him and 2 other miners. The Kepler Mining Consortium had paid for the funerals, but they also sent a bill for the lost equipment and work time. Now Amy and her mother owed the company more money than they could ever repay. The debt grew larger every month with interest and fees. Amy worked 2 jobs, waitressing during the day and cleaning offices at night, but it was never enough. Her mother had gotten sick from the stress and could barely work at all. Amy table. 6 needs their order taken, called Murphy from behind the grill. He was the diner's owner, a fat man with kind eyes who let Amy work extra hours when she needed them. Murphy knew about her family's money problems, but he couldn't pay her more than the standard wage. The mining consortium controlled everything on Kepler-7, including what businesses could charge and what workers could earn. Table 6 held 2 men in expensive suits. Corporate executives, definitely. They were looking at data tablets and talking in low voices about production quotas and shipping schedules. Amy walked over with her order pad ready. "What can I get for you gentlemen today?" she asked with her practiced smile. The older man looked up at her with cold gray eyes. Amy felt uncomfortable under his stare, like he was studying her for some purpose she couldn't understand. "Just coffee for now," he said. "We're waiting for someone." As Amy poured their coffee, she heard one of them mention her name. She tried to listen without being obvious about it. "The Carter girl would be perfect," the gray-eyed man was saying. "Young, attractive, and completely dependent on our goodwill. Preston needs a wife who won't cause trouble." Amy's hand shook slightly as she finished pouring. Preston Kane was the nephew of Victor Kane, the station administrator who basically ran Kepler-7 for the mining consortium. Amy had heard rumors that Victor was looking for a wife for his nephew, but she had never imagined they would consider her. She quickly walked away from the table, her heart beating fast. Marriage to Preston Kane would solve her family's money problems, but everyone knew what kind of man he was. Preston was spoiled, mean, and treated workers like property. The thought of being married to him made Amy feel sick. The diner door chimed again, and Amy looked up to see Victor Kane himself walking in. He was a big man in his 40s with thinning hair and a permanent scowl. Behind him walked Preston, a thin young man with pale skin and nervous eyes. Amy had seen them both before, but they had never paid attention to her. Victor's eyes found Amy immediately. He smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a man who had just found something he wanted to buy. "Miss Carter," Victor called out, his voice carrying across the entire diner. "Come here, please." Every conversation in the diner stopped. The miners, the security guards, even Murphy behind the grill. Everyone was watching. Amy knew she had no choice but to walk over to Victor's table. "Yes, sir," she said quietly. "I've been talking to your mother about your family's financial situation," Victor said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "The debt your father left behind is quite substantial. However, I'm prepared to make you an offer that would solve all your problems." Amy felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment. She didn't want her private business discussed in front of everyone she worked with. "My nephew Preston is looking for a wife," Victor continued. "A marriage between you two would be beneficial for both families. Your debt would be forgiven, your mother would receive proper medical care, and you would never have to work in places like this again." Preston smiled at Amy, but his eyes were cold and calculating. She could imagine what her life would be like married to him, locked away in some corporate apartment, expected to smile and stay quiet while he made all the decisions. I need time to think about it," Amy said. Victor's smile disappeared. "Time is a luxury your family can't afford, Miss Carter. The debt payment is due next week. If you can't pay, your mother will be sent back to the Mars colonies and you'll be assigned to the deep mining crews until the debt is worked off. That could take 20 years, assuming you survive the work." The threat was clear. Marry Preston, or lose everything. Amy felt trapped, like the walls of the space station were closing in around her. She looked around the diner, hoping someone would speak up for her, but everyone was looking down at their food. They all depended on the mining consortium for their jobs. No one could afford to make Victor Kane angry. "I understand," Amy said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "Excellent," Victor said, his smile returning. "We'll announce the engagement tomorrow night at the Founders' Day celebration. The wedding will be next month." Amy nodded and walked back to the counter on shaking legs. She felt like she couldn't breathe. Tomorrow night her freedom would be over. She would become Preston Kane's property, just another asset for his family to control. Outside the viewing window, the stars seemed farther away than ever. The next evening, Murphy's Diner was decorated with cheap plastic banners and blinking lights for Founders' Day. The celebration marked the day humans first established a successful colony beyond the solar system. Amy had always loved the holiday, as a child, but tonight it felt like a funeral. She wore her best dress, a simple blue outfit her mother had bought her last year. It was nothing fancy, but it was clean and made her look older than her 23 years. Amy tried to smile as she served drinks to the miners and their families, but her heart wasn't in it. "You look pretty tonight, Amy," said Maria Santos, one of the few other women who worked on the station. Maria ran the supply depot and had been kind to Amy after her father died. "Are you excited about the announcement?" Amy's stomach twisted. Everyone on Kepler 7 knew about her engagement to Preston Kane by now. Some people seemed happy for her, thinking she was lucky to marry into wealth. Others looked at her with pity, understanding what the marriage really meant. "I'm fine," Amy lied. "Just nervous, I guess." The diner filled up as more people arrived for the celebration. Station workers brought their families, creating a rare moment of joy on the usually grim mining outpost. Children ran between the tables while their parents talked and laughed. For a few hours, Kepler 7 almost felt like a real community instead of just a corporate work camp. Amy was refilling the coffee pot when she noticed a new customer sitting alone at table 8. He was a man in his early 30s with dark hair and tired eyes. His clothes were simple, work pants and a plain shirt that could belong to any cargo hauler or maintenance worker. He had ordered basic station rations and a cup of coffee. Nothing expensive. What caught Amy's attention was how he observed everything. His eyes moved constantly, taking in faces, conversations, and details that most people would miss. He reminded her of her father, who had always been alert and careful in his work. The man caught her looking and smiled. It was a genuine smile, not like the fake ones she got from corporate executives. Amy felt herself blush and quickly looked away. "More coffee?" she asked when she walked over to his table. "Please," he said. His voice was calm and friendly. "Great party. Is it always this crowded for Founders' Day?" "Usually," Amy said, pouring his cup. "It's one of the few times everyone gets together. Most people work different shifts, so we don't see each other much." You grew up here? The man asked. Born on Mars, but my family moved here when I was 10. My father got a job in the mines. Amy didn't know why she was telling him this. Maybe it was because he seemed genuinely interested, unlike most customers who barely noticed she existed. That must have been hard leaving everything behind. It was worth it, Amy said. The pay was better here and there were more opportunities. At least that's what my parents thought. Something sad crossed the man's face. Sometimes opportunities come with hidden costs. Before Amy could ask what he meant, the diner door burst open with a loud bang. Victor Kane strode in, followed by Preston and 6 corporate security guards. The entire room went quiet as conversations died and people turned to stare. Victor was dressed in his finest suit with the mining consortium logo on the collar. Preston wore similar clothes but looked nervous and kept fidgeting with his sleeves. The security guards spread out around the room, making it clear that no one should try to leave. Friends and neighbors, Victor announced in his booming voice. Thank you all for celebrating Founders Day with us. Tonight is special because we have wonderful news to share. Amy felt her legs go weak. This was it, her last moments of freedom. As you know, building strong families is essential for humanity's future among the stars, Victor continued. Tonight I'm proud to announce the engagement of my nephew Preston Kane to Miss Amy Carter. A few people clapped politely, but most of the room stayed silent. Amy could feel everyone's eyes on her, some pitying, others curious about how she would react. Preston stepped forward and grabbed Amy's hand roughly. His palm was sweaty, and his grip was too tight. I'm very happy, he said loudly, though his voice shook. Amy will make a wonderful wife. Amy wanted to pull her hand away, but Victor's security guards were watching her carefully. She knew that any sign of resistance would make things worse for her and her mother. The wedding will be held next month, Victor announced. It will be a grand celebration for the entire station. After all, when 2 families unite for the good of the colony, everyone benefits. Amy knew what he really meant. The marriage would give Victor control over her family's mining claim, which contained valuable rare earth elements. Her father had always said the claim would make them rich someday, but now it would just make the Kanes richer. I think there's been a mistake, a calm voice said from across the room. Everyone turned to look at table 8. The quiet man in work clothes was standing up, his coffee cup still in his hand. He looked completely relaxed despite having 6 armed guards staring at him. Excuse me? Victor said, his face turning red. Who are you? Jake Mitchell, the man said simply. And I think you've made an error about Miss Carter's availability. Amy stared at him in confusion. What was he talking about? Jake walked across the room until he was standing next to Amy. Preston was still holding her hand, but his grip had loosened in surprise. Amy and I have been seeing each other for several months now, Jake said calmly. She's already spoken for. Amy's mouth fell open. This was completely untrue, but something in Jake's eyes told her to play along. Maybe he was trying to help her, though she couldn't understand why a stranger would risk getting involved. That's impossible, Victor snarled. I've had Amy watched. She works 2 jobs and goes straight home every night. She doesn't have time for relationships. We've been very discreet, Jake said. Amy's family situation is complicated, so we agreed to keep things quiet until the right time. Preston finally let go of Amy's hand and stepped back. This is ridiculous. Amy, tell them this man is lying. Amy looked around the room. Every face was watching her, waiting to see what she would do. Victor's security guards had their hands near their weapons. She could feel the weight of her family's debt, her mother's medical bills, and her own future pressing down on her. Then she looked at Jake Mitchell. He was standing there calmly, offering her a chance she didn't understand, but might never get again. His eyes were kind but determined, like he was prepared to fight for her even though they had just met. Amy made her choice. She stepped forward, wrapped her arms around Jake's neck, and kissed him passionately in front of the entire room. The kiss lasted several seconds. Jake's arms came around her waist, and she could feel his surprise turn into determination. When they finally broke apart, the entire diner was silent except for the hum of the air recycling system. I'm sorry, Mr. Kane, Amy said, her voice stronger than she had ever heard it. But Jake is right. I'm already with someone. Victor's face was purple with rage. Preston looked like he might cry. The security guards were reaching for their weapons when Jake held up one hand. "I wouldn't do that if I were you," Jake said quietly. "This is a public celebration with lots of witnesses. Violence against civilians tends to attract attention from the colonial authority." For a moment, Amy thought Victor might order his men to shoot anyway, but then he seemed to remember where they were and who was watching. Beating up a young couple at a public party would be hard to explain to his corporate bosses. "This isn't over," Victor hissed. "Amy, you're making a terrible mistake. Your family's debt doesn't disappear just because you found a boyfriend." "We'll see about that," Jake said calmly. Victor glared around the room one more time, then stormed out with Preston and his guards following behind. As soon as they were gone, conversations slowly started up again, though everyone kept glancing at Amy and Jake. Amy suddenly realized she was still in Jake's arms. She stepped back, her face burning with embarrassment. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I don't know why I did that. Thank you for helping me, but you don't understand what you've gotten yourself into. Victor Kane is very powerful, and now he's going to be angry at both of us." Jake smiled that genuine smile again. "Don't worry. About Victor Kane, I think I can handle him." "You don't understand," Amy said desperately. "He controls everything on this station. He can have you fired, arrested, or worse. You should leave on the next transport ship." "I'm not going anywhere," Jake said firmly. "Besides, I have some business to finish here on Kepler 7. Amy stared at him, wondering who this mysterious man really was and why he was willing to risk everything to help a waitress he had just met. Amy couldn't sleep that night. She kept thinking about the kiss and wondering what Jake Mitchell really wanted from her. Men didn't help women for free, especially not when it meant making enemies of powerful people like Victor Kane. There had to be something he wanted in return. The next morning, Amy arrived at Murphy's Diner early to prepare for the breakfast shift. She was surprised to find Jake already sitting at table 8 with a cup of coffee and a data tablet. He looked like he hadn't slept much either. "Good morning," he said when he saw her. "We need to talk." Amy poured herself coffee and sat across from him. The diner was empty except for them, giving them privacy to speak freely. "Why did you help me last night?" Amy asked directly. Nobody risks their life for strangers, especially not against Victor Kane. Jake was quiet for a moment, studying her face. "What do you know about your father's mining claim?" The question surprised Amy. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Just answer me, please. What did your father tell you about the land he was working?" Amy frowned. "He said it had good deposits of rare earth metals. Nothing special, just enough to pay the bills and maybe save some money for retirement." "Why?" Jake turned his tablet around so she could see the screen. It showed a geological survey map of Kepler 7's mining zones. Her father's claim was marked with a red circle. "Your father's claim sits on top of something much more valuable than rare earth metals," Jake said quietly. "It contains traces of quantum foam." Amy stared at the screen. "I don't know what that is." Quantum foam is a substance that exists in the spaces between atoms. Most places in the universe, there's so little of it that we can't detect it. But sometimes, in areas with unusual gravitational fields, it collects in larger amounts. "So, what?" Amy asked. "What makes it valuable?" Jake leaned forward. "Quantum foam can be used to create faster-than-light communication systems. Right now it takes months for messages to travel between star systems. With quantum foam technology, we could send messages instantly across any distance," Amy began. "To understand, that would change everything. Trade, military communications, colony coordination, exactly. The first nation or corporation to master quantum foam communication will have a huge advantage over everyone else. That's why your father's claim is so important." "But my father died 2 years ago," Amy said. "If this quantum foam is so valuable, why hasn't Victor Kane already taken the claim?" "Because he doesn't know what he's looking for," Jake explained. "The quantum foam appears as tiny traces mixed in with regular mining debris. You need special equipment and knowledge to detect it. Victor thinks he's just getting rare earth metals." Amy felt confused and overwhelmed. "How do you know all this?" Are you a scientist or something? Jake was quiet again, like he was deciding how much to tell her. Finally, he spoke. My name is Jonathan Mitchell, but everyone calls me Jake. I'm the CEO of Mitchell Stellar Industries. Amy nearly dropped her coffee cup. Mitchell Stellar Industries was one of the biggest corporations in human space. They built starships, developed new technologies, and had contracts with dozens of colony worlds. Their CEO would be one of the richest and most powerful people in the galaxy. You're lying, Amy said automatically. The CEO of Mitchell Stellar wouldn't be sitting in a mining station diner wearing work clothes. Jake pulled out a small device and pressed his thumb to it. The device beeped and projected a holographic ID card into the air. It showed Jake's picture along with his full name, title, and corporate identification codes. I came to Kepler-7 secretly to investigate reports of corporate corruption and worker abuse, Jake said. My company has been tracking illegal activities by several mining corporations, including the Kepler Mining Consortium. Amy stared at the holographic ID, trying to process what she was seeing. You're really him. You actually kissed a CEO. You kissed me, Jake pointed out with a small smile. And I'm glad you did. It gave me the perfect cover story to stay on the station and continue my investigation. What kind of investigation? Jake's expression became serious. Victor Kane has been stealing from his own company and abusing workers for years. Forced marriages, illegal debt contracts, safety violations that kill people like your father. But he's also been doing something much worse. What could be worse than that? He's been selling human resources and intelligence to alien traders. Amy felt cold suddenly. What do you mean? There are several alien species that see humanity as a threat. We're expanding too fast, developing new technologies, taking territories they want for themselves. Some aliens would pay well for information about human defenses, resource locations, and colony plans. You think Victor is a traitor? I know he is. My investigators have been tracking his communications with alien merchants from the Vardax Empire. He's been giving them detailed reports about human mining operations, defensive positions, and technology development. Amy thought about this. The Vardax were known throughout human space as aggressive and dangerous. They had attacked human colonies before, claiming the territories belonged to them by ancient right. Why would Victor help them? Money and power, Jake said simply. He thinks humanity's expansion into space is too risky. Better to make deals with established alien powers and hope they let humans keep some territory as junior partners. That's horrible. It gets worse. The Vardax have been using Victor's information to plan attacks on human settlements. 3 colonies have been destroyed in the past year. Thousands of people are dead because of intelligence Victor provided. Amy felt sick. She had known Victor was cruel and greedy, but she hadn't imagined he was capable of betraying his entire species. What does this have to do with me and my family's claim? Victor is getting desperate. My investigation is getting close to exposing him, and the Vardax are demanding more valuable information. If they get control of the quantum foam deposits, they could develop communication technology that would give them a huge advantage over human forces. So Victor wants to marry me to Preston to get the mining claim. Right. Once he controls the claim legally through marriage, he can extract the quantum foam and sell it to the Vardax. They would pay millions for it. Amy stood up and began pacing around the diner. Everything was starting to make sense, but it also made her situation much more dangerous. Victor's security people are probably investigating you right now, she said. When they find out who you really are, they'll try to kill you. They're welcome to try, Jake said calmly. But I didn't come here alone. I have a team of investigators on the station, and there's a Mitchell Stellar Industries ship in the outer system waiting for my signal. Then why don't you just arrest Victor and end this? Because I need proof that will hold up in court. Victor is careful about covering his tracks. I need to catch him in the act of communicating with the Vardax or transferring illegal materials. Amy sat back down. What do you need me to do? Keep pretending to be my girlfriend. It gives me a reason to stay close to you and your family's situation. Victor will probably try to pressure you into breaking up with me and marrying Preston, anyway. He will definitely do that. He doesn't give up easily. Good, let him try. Every move he makes gives me more evidence of his illegal activities. Amy looked at Jake carefully. You're using me as bait. Only if you agree to help. I won't force you to do anything dangerous. Amy thought about her father, killed in a mining accident that was probably caused by Victor's cost-cutting safety violations. She thought about her mother, sick with worry and medical bills. She thought about all the other families on Kepler 7 who were trapped by Victor's corrupt system. What happens if we succeed? Victor goes to prison for treason. The Kepler mining consortium gets new management. Your family's debt disappears and you become very wealthy from the quantum foam deposits. And if we fail, Victor marries you to Preston, gets control of the quantum foam, sells it to the Vardax, and probably has me killed to cover his tracks. Amy was quiet for several minutes, thinking about the choice she had to make. Finally, she looked up at Jake. Okay, I'll help you, but I have one condition. What's that? When this is over, you help the other families on this station too. Victor has hurt a lot of people over the years. They deserve justice just as much as I do. Jake smiled. Deal. But Amy, you need to understand something important. What? This is going to be very dangerous. Victor is desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. He might try to hurt you or your mother to force you into the marriage. Amy nodded. I understand. But I can't live my life being afraid of him anymore. As if summoned by her words, the diner door opened and Victor Kane walked in with 4 security guards. His face was cold and angry as he approached their table. Miss Carter, Victor said formally, I think it's time we had another conversation about your future. Victor Kane stood at their table with his security guards spread out behind him. Amy could see other customers in the diner looking nervous and trying to pretend they weren't listening. Everyone knew it was dangerous to get involved when Victor was angry. Mr. Mitchell, Victor said, his voice cold and controlled. I've been asking questions about you. It's interesting how little information exists about your background. Jake stayed seated and sipped his coffee calmly. I keep a low profile. Most cargo haulers do. Cargo haulers don't usually interfere in family business, Victor replied. And they don't usually have the confidence to stand up to station security. Maybe you haven't met the right cargo haulers. Victor's eyes narrowed. Amy, I think your new friend is hiding something from you. Men who lie about their jobs usually lie about other things too. Amy felt her heart beating fast, but she tried to stay calm like Jake. I trust him more than I trust you. That's unfortunate, Victor said, because your trust is misplaced. Let me tell you something about human nature, Amy. People always act in their own self-interest. Your friend here wants something from you, and when he gets it, he'll disappear. Jake finally looked up at Victor. What makes you think I want something? Because no man risks his life for a woman unless there's profit involved. You're either after her family's mining claim, or you're working for someone who is. Amy watched Jake's face carefully. She wondered if Victor might be right. Maybe Jake was just using her to get the quantum foam for his own company. You're partially correct, Jake said quietly. I am interested in the mining claim, but not for the reasons you think. Victor smiled triumphantly. See, Amy, I told you he was lying. Let me finish, Jake said firmly. I'm interested in the claim because I want to make sure it stays in the right hands. There are forces working against humanity that you can't imagine, Victor. Aliens who see us as a threat to their power. Victor's smile faded slightly. What are you talking about? Jake stood up slowly. Humanity has something that other species don't have. We adapt, we innovate, we take impossible situations and find ways to win. That's why we've been able to expand into space faster than anyone expected. Get to the point, Victor snapped. The point is that some aliens are scared of what we might become. They're willing to pay good money for information that helps them slow down human expansion. Information about our resources, our defenses, our technology. Amy saw Victor's face change slightly. For just a moment, he looked worried instead of angry. That sounds like conspiracy nonsense, Victor said, but his voice wasn't as confident as before. Is it? Jake asked. Let me tell you what I know about human advantages in space. We're the only species that actively seeks out dangerous environments for resources. Most aliens avoid asteroid mining, deep space construction, and hostile planet colonization. They think it's too risky. Jake walked over to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. But humans don't just survive in dangerous places. We thrive. We build mining stations in asteroid fields that other species consider impossible to work. We establish colonies on planets with toxic atmospheres and extreme weather. We do things that aliens think are crazy. So what? Victor said, but Amy could tell he was listening carefully. So we're developing technologies and gathering resources that give us advantages in space. Faster ships, better weapons, stronger materials. The aliens who have controlled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years are starting to realize that humans might become more powerful than them. Amy began to understand what Jake was saying. You think some aliens are trying to stop human expansion? I know they are, Jake said. The Vardax Empire has been particularly aggressive. They've attacked human colonies and claimed the territories belong to them. But they've also been trying subtler approaches. Victor's security guards were looking at each other uncertainly. This wasn't the kind of conversation they had expected. What kind of subtler approaches? Amy asked. Corruption, bribery, finding humans who are willing to sell information or resources in exchange for money and protection. Humans who think cooperation with aliens is better than competition. Victor's face was getting red again. That's enough. Amy, this man is clearly unstable. Security, escort him off the station. The guard started to move forward, but Jake held up one hand. Before you do that, let me ask Victor a question. How much did the Vardax pay you for the mineral surveys from sectors 7 through 12? Everyone in the diner went completely silent. Victor's face went pale, then red, then pale again. I don't know what you're talking about, Victor said, but his voice was shaking. Or the colony defense schedules you provided last month, or the shipping manifests showing which transports carry valuable technology. Victor's security guards stopped moving. They were looking at their boss with confusion and growing suspicion. You're lying, Victor said desperately. This is some kind of corporate espionage attempt. Jake pulled out his data tablet and pressed a few buttons. A holographic display appeared in the air showing financial records, communication logs, and shipping documents. These are copies of your personal accounts, Victor. 15 payments from Vardax merchants over the past 2 years. Each payment corresponds to classified information about human operations that somehow made its way to alien hands. Amy stared at the holographic evidence. She could see bank transfers, coded messages, and shipping records that proved Victor had been selling human secrets to aliens. The Hanover colony attack that killed 3,000 people, Jake continued. The Vardax knew exactly where to hit because you gave them the defense grid schematics. One of Victor's security guards dropped his weapon. My brother lived on Hanover colony, he said quietly. He died in that attack. Victor looked around desperately. His own men were staring at him with disgust and growing anger. You don't understand, Victor said frantically. Humanity is expanding too fast. We're making enemies we can't fight. I was trying to find a peaceful solution. By betraying your own species? Amy asked, horrified. By being realistic. The aliens have been in space for thousands of years. They have bigger fleets, more advanced weapons, established territories. Humans are newcomers who don't understand the rules. Jake shook his head. That's where you're wrong, Victor. Humans don't follow other people's rules, we make our own. That attitude will get humanity destroyed, Victor snarled. No, Jake said firmly. That attitude is what makes humanity special. Every other species in the galaxy accepts limitations. They stay in their assigned territories, follow ancient treaties, and avoid taking risks. But humans push boundaries. We explore dangerous places, develop new technologies, and refuse to accept that something is impossible. Amy felt a surge of pride listening to Jake describe humanity's strengths. She thought about her father, who had come to a dangerous mining station to build a better life for his family. She thought about all the other humans who had left safe homes on Earth to establish colonies among the stars. The Vardaks are afraid of us because they know we won't stay in whatever small corner of space they want to give us, Jake continued. They know that humans will keep expanding, keep innovating, keep becoming stronger. That's why they're trying to stop us now, before we become too powerful. Victor's remaining security guards were backing away from him. Even his own men couldn't support someone who had betrayed humanity to aliens. But you made a mistake, Victor, Jake said. You assumed that all humans would be as weak and fearful as you are. You didn't account for people like Amy, who would rather fight than surrender. Amy stood up straight, feeling braver than she had in months. I won't let you steal my family's land to sell to aliens, and I won't marry your nephew just because you threatened me. Victor looked around the diner desperately. Every face was staring at him with hatred and disgust. Even the miners and workers who had been afraid of him before were standing up, no longer intimidated by his authority. This isn't over, Victor said, backing toward the door. You have no idea what you're dealing with. The Vardaks will come for that quantum foam whether you cooperate or not. Let them come, Jake said calmly. Humans have dealt with aliens before. We'll deal with them again. Victor ran out of the diner with his remaining security guards following behind. As soon as he was gone, the entire room erupted in angry conversations as people discussed what they had just learned. Amy sat down heavily, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. Victor's right about one thing, she said to Jake. This isn't over. He'll try something else. I'm counting on it, Jake replied. Desperate people make mistakes. And when Victor makes his next mistake, we'll be ready for him. Amy looked around the diner at all the faces of her neighbors and co-workers. For the first time since her father died, she felt like she wasn't alone in her fight against Victor Kane. The truth about his betrayal had turned the entire station against him. What happens now? She asked. Jake smiled. Now we show Victor Kane and his alien friends what happens when you underestimate human determination. 3 hours after Victor's public humiliation in the diner, the station's communication system crackled to life. His voice echoed through every corridor, workshop, and living quarter on Kepler 7. Attention all station personnel. This is Administrator Kane. Due to security concerns, all workers are confined to quarters effective immediately. Anyone found in public areas without authorization will be arrested. Amy looked at Jake across the diner table. They had been planning their next move when Victor's announcement interrupted them. He's making his final play, Jake said quietly. He knows his cover is blown, so he's going to try to take control by force. Murphy came out from behind the counter, his face worried. What should we do? If Victor's declared martial law, his security forces can arrest anyone they want. How many security guards does he have? Jake asked. Maybe 20, Amy replied. But they control the weapon lockers, the communication center, and the main computer systems. Jake pulled out his data tablet and began typing rapidly. That's okay. I have people in position. What people? Amy asked. Before Jake could answer, the diner door burst open. But instead of Victor's security guards, 3 people in civilian clothes entered. 2 men and 1 woman, all carrying themselves like trained soldiers despite their casual appearance. Boss, the woman said to Jake, we have a problem. Kane's people just seized the communication array and locked down the docking bays. No ships, in or out. Jake nodded grimly. Lisa, meet Amy Carter. Amy, this is Lisa Park, my head of security. Amy stared at the newcomers. You really did bring a team. Always, Jake said. Lisa, what's our tactical situation? Kane has maybe 18. Security guards left after 4 quit during your little speech this morning, Lisa reported. They're armed with standard pulse rifles and body armor. They've barricaded themselves in the admin section and the communication center. What about the civilians? Most are staying in their quarters like Kane ordered. A few are hiding in the lower levels. Nobody wants to get caught in the middle of a firefight. Amy felt scared but also strangely excited. For 2 years she had felt helpless against Victor's power. Now finally someone was fighting back. There's something else, Lisa continued. Our ship detected 3 Vardax vessels approaching the system. They'll be here in about 6 hours. Amy's blood went cold. Vardax ships? Here? Jake's expression became grim. Victor must have called them when he realized his operation was exposed. He's probably promised to hand over the quantum foam in exchange for protection. Can your ship fight them? Amy asked. 1-on-1, yes. 3-on-1. Jake shrugged. That would be more difficult. Lisa checked her weapon. We need to retake the communication center and call for backup. Wait, Amy said suddenly. I know another way to contact the outside. Everyone looked at her. What do you mean? Jake asked. My father used to maintain the mining equipment. He showed me the emergency communication system in the deep shafts. It's completely separate from the main station network. Kane probably doesn't even know it exists. Jake smiled. Can you get us there? Yes, but we'd have to go through the maintenance tunnels. It's dangerous. Some sections don't have gravity or air recycling. Better than fighting through Kane's security checkpoints, Lisa said. They spent the next hour planning their route through the station's service tunnels. Amy drew maps on napkins showing the safest path to reach the mining section without being detected. The emergency communicator is in Shaft 7, Amy explained. That's where my father... She stopped, remembering that Shaft 7 was where her father had died. Jake put a gentle hand on her shoulder. We don't have to go there if it's too hard for you. Amy shook her head firmly. No. My father would want his equipment used to help people. Besides, I know that shaft better than anyone. As they prepared to leave, Murphy grabbed Amy's arm. Be careful, girl. That man Kane is desperate, and desperate people do terrible things. Amy hugged the old cook. Take care of yourself, Murphy. And if any of Kane's people come looking for us, tell them we went to the upper residential levels. They left through the diner's back entrance, which connected to the station's maintenance areas. Amy led them through narrow corridors lined with pipes and electrical conduits. The air was stale and the gravity felt lighter as they moved away from the main station sections. How do you know these tunnels so well? Lisa asked as they crawled through a particularly tight passage. My father brought me here when I was younger, Amy replied. He said every person on the station should know the emergency routes in case something went wrong. After 30 minutes of careful movement, they reached the mining section. Amy could see the familiar sight of heavy machinery and ore processing equipment, but something was wrong. There are lights in Shaft 7, she whispered. There shouldn't be anyone working down there. Jake peered around the corner. Kane's security guards. Looks like Victor figured out where we were going. Amy felt frustrated and angry. How did he know? He's been administrator here for 5 years, Jake replied. He probably knows about the emergency communicator too. Lisa counted the guards. I see 4 men with rifles. They're guarding the shaft entrance. Can we go around them? Amy asked. Not without making a lot of noise, Lisa said. And there might be more guards inside the shaft. They were discussing alternatives when the station's emergency alarm began, blaring. Red lights flashed in the corridors as a recorded message played over and over. Hull breach in Section 12. All personnel evacuate immediately. Hull breach in Section 12. Jake and Lisa looked at each other with concern. That's not an accident, Lisa said. Either Kane is trying to create a distraction or the Vardax ships arrived early, Jake finished. Amy's heart was pounding. What do we do now? Before anyone could answer, they heard footsteps in the corridor behind them. Victor Kane appeared with 6 security guards, all carrying weapons. Well, Victor said with a cold smile. The cargo hauler and his girlfriend, trapped like rats in the maintenance tunnels. Amy noticed that Victor looked different. His expensive suit was rumpled, his hair was messy, and his eyes had a wild, desperate look. Hello, Victor, Jake said calmly. Having trouble with your alien friends? Victor's smile disappeared. The Vardax are here, just as I promised them, but they're not interested in negotiations anymore. They want the quantum foam and they want it now. So they're attacking the station? Amy asked. They're liberating it, Victor said bitterly. Apparently I'm no longer useful to them now that my cover is blown. They plan to take what they want and eliminate any witnesses. Lisa kept her hand near her weapon. Including you? Victor laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Especially me. Traitors aren't trustworthy even to the people they betray. Amy stared at Victor, seeing him clearly for the first time. He wasn't a powerful administrator anymore. He was just a scared, foolish man who had made terrible choices and was now facing the consequences. It doesn't have to end this way, Jake said. Help us contact the outside and we can protect you from the Vardaks. Victor shook his head. It's too late. The Vardaks have already disabled our long-range communications. No one knows they're here. The emergency alarm stopped suddenly, leaving them in an eerie silence. Then Victor's radio crackled with a harsh, alien voice speaking broken English. Human Kane. You will deliver the quantum foam substance to Landing Bay 3 immediately. Resistance will result in station destruction. Victor looked at his radio with hatred and fear. See? They're not asking anymore. They're demanding. Amy felt a surge of anger. This is what cooperation with aliens gets you, Victor. They use you up and throw you away. At least I tried to find a peaceful solution. Victor snapped. You're going to get everyone on this station killed with your human stubbornness. Jake stepped forward. Maybe. But we're going to go down fighting, not on our knees, begging for mercy. Fighting with what? Victor demanded. The Vardaks have warships, we have mining equipment and security guards. Amy smiled suddenly, remembering something her father had taught her. Victor, you really don't understand miners, do you? What do you mean? Miners don't just dig holes in rock. We work with explosives, heavy machinery, and industrial chemicals every day. We know how to build things, and we know how to blow things up. Jake caught on to her meaning. How much mining explosive is stored on this station? Amy's smile grew wider. Enough to crack an asteroid in half, and I know exactly where it's kept. Victor's security guards were looking nervous. They had signed up to intimidate workers, not fight alien invaders. You're all insane, Victor said. The Vardaks will destroy this station if you resist. Then we better make sure we take them down with us, Amy replied. For the first time since this whole crisis began, Amy felt truly confident. The aliens might have bigger ships and better weapons, but they didn't understand what they were dealing with. They were about to learn what happened when you threatened a human community that had decided to fight back. Amy looked Victor Kane straight in the eyes. Your alien friends made one big mistake. They thought humans would give up when things got difficult. Victor's radio crackled again with the harsh Vardak's voice. Human Kane, you have 10 minutes to deliver quantum foam. After that, we begin destroying station sections. See? Victor said desperately. We have to give them what they want. No, Amy said firmly. We give them what they deserve. She turned to Jake and Lisa. Follow me. I know where the mining explosives are stored, and I know how to use them. They moved quickly through the maintenance tunnels, leaving Victor and his confused security guards behind. Amy could hear Victor shouting for them to come back, but she ignored him. Do you really know how to handle mining explosives? Jake asked as they crawled through a narrow passage. My father taught me. Miners learn everything about their tools, including the dangerous ones. He said you never knew when that knowledge might save your life. They reached the mining supply section without being detected. Amy quickly opened a storage locker using her father's old access code, revealing rows of small cylindrical devices. Plasma charges, she explained. We use them to break apart asteroid rock. Each one can blast through 20 feet of solid stone. Lisa whistled softly. How many do we have? Amy counted quickly. 48 charges, plus detonators and timing devices. That's enough to damage a ship, Jake said. But how do we get them to the Vardak's vessels? Amy smiled. We don't take the explosives to them. We make them come to us. She led them to another storage area and pulled out handheld mining scanners. These can detect quantum foam traces. If we spread them around the station and set them to broadcast false readings, the Vardaks will think there are quantum foam deposits everywhere. Jake understood immediately. They'll send boarding parties to multiple locations to search for the real deposits. Right, and when they do, We'll be waiting with surprises. They spent the next 20 minutes placing plasma charges and fake quantum foam scanners throughout the station. Amy knew every corridor, every hiding spot, every maintenance access that could be used for ambushes. As they worked, they could hear the Vardak ships docking with the station. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as alien soldiers began searching for the quantum foam deposits. "How many Vardaks do you think they brought?" Lisa asked as they hid behind some mining equipment. "Doesn't matter," Amy replied. "They're in our territory now." The first group of Vardak soldiers appeared in the mining section 15 minutes later. Amy had never seen aliens up close before. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes. They carried advanced energy, weapons that hummed with power. But despite their intimidating appearance, Amy noticed something important. The Vardaks moved carefully, like they were afraid of the unfamiliar environment. They stayed close together and seemed nervous about the heavy machinery and industrial equipment around them. "They don't understand mining operations," Amy whispered to Jake. "They're scared of the equipment." One of the Vardak soldiers approached the fake quantum foam scanner Amy had placed near the ore processor. As soon as he touched it, Amy triggered the first plasma charge. The explosion shook the entire section. The Vardak soldier disappeared in a flash of light, and his companions began shooting wildly at shadows and machinery. "Move!" Amy shouted, leading Jake and Lisa to their next position. Throughout the station, similar explosions began occurring as other Vardak search teams encountered Amy's traps. The aliens had expected to find scared humans hiding in corners, not determined fighters who knew every inch of their territory. Amy's radio crackled with panicked voices as victors remaining. Security guards realized they were caught between angry aliens and armed resistance fighters. "This is Security Team 3, a nervous voice reported. "The aliens are shooting at everything that moves. We can't tell who's on what side anymore." "All security teams, return to base immediately," Victor's voice commanded. But Amy could hear the fear in his words. His carefully planned betrayal was falling apart. Jake's team met up with Lisa's people near the main corridor. "Status report," Jake called out. "We've eliminated 2 Vardak search teams," Lisa reported, "but they're adapting quickly. The next wave will be more careful." "That's okay," Amy said. "We don't need to defeat them all. We just need to hold them." "Off long enough?" "Long enough for what?" Jake asked. Amy pointed to her mining scanner. "Long enough for them to get really frustrated and make a big mistake." As if responding to her words, the station's communication system activated, but instead of Victor's voice, they heard the harsh tones of a Vardak's commander. "Humans, you will surrender immediately. We have located your quantum foam deposits. Resistance is pointless." Amy grinned. "No, they haven't. They're bluffing because our fake scanners are confusing them." Jake looked impressed. "You really do understand mining technology." "I understand something more important," Amy replied. "I understand human nature, and I understand alien nature too." She activated her radio and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Amy Carter, daughter of miner Robert Carter. I have a message for the Vardak's commander." There was a pause. Then the alien voice responded. "Speak, human female. You came here expecting us to be weak and scared. You thought humans would hand over our resources just because you have bigger ships. But you made the same mistake Victor, Kane made." "What mistake?" "You underestimated what humans will do to protect our families and our future." Amy took a deep breath. "I'm standing next to the real quantum foam deposit right now. It's wired with enough explosives to destroy this entire section of the station. If you don't withdraw your ships and leave this system immediately, I'll detonate the charges." The radio was silent for several long seconds. Finally, the Vardak's commander spoke again. "You are bluffing. Humans would not destroy such valuable resources. Want a bet?" Amy asked. She held up a detonator where Jake could see it. To her surprise, it was actually connected to a real plasma charge she had placed near her father's old mining equipment. "Amy," Jake said quietly, "what are you doing?" "What my father would have done," she replied. "Protecting what's ours." The Vardak's commander's voice returned, sounding less confident. If you destroy the quantum foam, both sides lose. This is not logical. Logic has nothing to do with it, Amy said firmly. This is about principle. Humans don't surrender to bullies, whether they're corporate executives or alien invaders. Another long pause. Then they heard different voices speaking in the alien language, clearly arguing among themselves. Finally, the commander spoke again. We will withdraw. But this matter is not finished. Other Vardak's forces will return. Let them come, Amy replied. We'll be ready. Through the viewing windows, they could see the 3 Vardak ships detaching from the station and moving away into space. As soon as they were gone, Amy collapsed into a chair, suddenly exhausted. Is it really over? She asked. Jake checked his data tablet. The Vardak ships are leaving the system, and I'm getting signals from Mitchell Stellar Industries vessels approaching from the outer system. They received our emergency transmission. Lisa was already coordinating with the arriving human ships. Security teams are moving to arrest Victor Kane and his remaining collaborators. Amy looked around the mining section where she had spent so many hours with her father. What happens now? Now we rebuild, Jake said. Victor's corruption is exposed, the Vardak's threat is neutralized, and your family's quantum foam deposits will help humanity develop new technologies. And the other families on the station? They'll get justice too. The new administration will review all of Victor's illegal contracts and debt arrangements. Amy smiled for the first time in months. My father would be proud. He would be. Jake agreed. His daughter just saved an entire space station and probably prevented a war. 3 weeks later, Amy stood in the same diner where everything had started. But now she wore a business suit instead of a waitress uniform, and the mining consortium logo on the wall had been replaced with the emblem of Carter Mining Industries. Jake walked in and sat at what had become their regular table. How does it feel being the youngest mining company owner in human space? Scary, Amy admitted. But good scary, like when you're about to try something that might be impossible but you're going to do it anyway. That sounds very human, Jake said with a smile. Amy looked out the viewing window at the stars. My father always said humans belonged out here among the stars. Not because space is safe or easy, but because we're the kind of people who go to dangerous places and make them home. The Vardaks and other alien species will figure that out eventually, Jake said. Humans don't give up. We don't stay in one place and we don't accept limitations. Good, Amy replied. Let them learn. And if they ever come back to threaten human families again, we'll be ready to remind them what happens when you pick a fight with people who refuse to lose. Outside the window, human ships moved between the asteroids, mining precious resources and building humanity's future among the stars. And in Murphy's diner, a young woman who had started as a waitress sat planning humanity's next expansion into the unknown reaches of space, proving once again that humans would never accept anything less than unlimited possibilities.